2023. Players in the sector decry additional taxes, saying there is every possibility the cost of holidays and leisure will rise. And the players said there would generally be a slow uptake of leisure services, further affecting revenues generated from the sector among those with the lowest hanging fruits in the economy. That is what we want to discuss this morning, the state of tourism. And joining me for that conversation is Charles Gaku, who is the Managing Director of Air Travel and Related Studies Center. Thank you so much for making time.
Hi, Fatia.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank
right?
you. I'm all right. I want us to just start talking about, of course, the state of tourism in Kenya.
Yes.
In your opinion, what is the current state of tourism now that the season is opening up?
Wow, we are doing well, Fatia, at the moment. I must say that the lodges, transportation, and all other areas are fully booked for the month of July, August, going on through to September, and we hope that it will extend to October and November. So far, so good. I know that we have issues that we need to address. For example, with the finance bill now, Kenya is becoming more and more as an expensive destination. We are not our own, we have competitors as well. We do have Tanzania, we have Zambia, Zimbabwe, you have South Africa, and so on. So with the bill, everything becomes expensive. You have to pay more for park fees, you have to pay more for accommodation, more for transportation. And that means that we could be outpricing ourselves out of the market if we do not take care.
I want us to get back to that in a bit later, especially the Finance Act, the effect that it has on tourism.
Right,
But now let's talk about the challenges. We've said that tourism is opening up.
But
what are some of the challenges that are being experienced at the moment?
Tourism is opening up. As I said, it looks good, but it's becoming less and less. Before, we used to have seasons from June all the way to February the following year. That was 6 months of good tourism business. But now you're looking at July, then by November, it's gone down. So that's a shortage of 2 months or so. So that's a challenge. And one more thing I've also seen is the quality of people who are working in the travel industry and tourism as well as hospitality.
Right.
We know that when COVID struck, people lost jobs, and after COVID, we did not get the same amount of people getting back to the industry. And that means that we have to make good with whatever staff numbers that we have. So the challenge is more and more training so that it can get back to professional service delivery, and that can only be done by getting fresh graduates from institutions like mine, Air Travel and Related Study Center, so that we get our country on track, and as far as tourism is concerned, to the pre-COVID levels.
But let's talk about, of course, the economic situation in the country, not only in Kenya, actually, globally.
Yes.
There's a lot of issues when it comes to the economy. How is that affecting the tourism industry?
We must say that the world is poorer than it was. It's a global issue that we have. The traveler, for example, is going to spend less, will be less enabled to stay for longer than they would in the event that the economy was doing well. Also, their choice of destinations and the choice of amenities to use, the lodges and the camps, they choose something lower than what there was. So we talk about, yes, numbers coming in like they are in the month of July, August and September, but in terms of revenue, you may not realize the numbers that were there before the COVID. So yes, quality tourists might not be in sight for the next few years as the world recovers. So that's a setback not just for the country, but in the entire world as far as travel business is concerned. I did attend a meeting in Addis 2 weeks ago on Focus on Africa as far as aviation is concerned. I was invited. And the thing that they were talking about, Africa is taking longer to recover from the pandemic than the rest of the world. Europe is almost at 94% pre-COVID levels, the US at 96%, but Africa is on 71, 72% pre-COVID. What does it tell us is that we have to venture much more on intra-Africa trade, and in particular in our area, domestic tourism.
Actually, I wanted us to talk about domestic tourism, but what quality of tourism are we getting in now? Are we getting more domestic tourists from the country, of course, or international tourists are the ones who are coming in more?
Initially, I must thank the domestic tourists in our country. I'm talking about the Kenyans, who featured in the gap when we were down for 1 year or so. We did not have good business. Remember that we were almost locked everywhere, but I'm glad to say that during the COVID, 60 to 65% of travelers, or those who venture to travel in our country are actually domestic tourists. And that is not showing any signs of slowing down. It looks like we are having a more and more bigger growing middle class. That is very good for tourism. International tourism, I want to fault government. We should not be talking about how many numbers we want. We want 1.5 or 2 million by the year 2025 or 2030. We should look at how much revenue are they really bringing into a country. We have seen good examples of countries like Spain, where they got their millions in the late 90s, and the tourism industry in Spain almost collapsed. We should focus on quality tourism. I know that's hard to achieve. We are slowly degrading Masai Mara to a wildebeest migration destination. That is only for 2 months, the month of July and the month of September. We should have a perception, and we should make a perception to tourists that Kenya is open 24/7 and for 365 days in a year. It's not just the migration that we're selling in but there is much more, the Big Five and much more. So the selling, the way we market our country, we should market it as a huge destination, comparatively with Tanzania and with South Africa. And that we need the dollar for us to have, of course, our economies, our dollar stabilized, so we need as much foreign exchange as we can at the moment.
Let's talk about the Finance Act 2023, quite controversial as you know it. Of course, it's led to increase in taxes.
Yes, it has.
How is that affecting the tourism sector?
Finance Act and taxes. That means motor vehicles that you use for the tourism sector. Of course, if you want to purchase one, you pay much more than you could in the past. If you want to start a lodge or a camp, construction materials are also up. That means that you spend more than you budgeted initially to set up a camp or a lodge in our country. So we'll have many opting to go elsewhere. Tanzania is waiting, and many others, to also have investors in tourism industry. Talk about what we charge our students, our tourists for fuel. Now it's up. So as you do your costing on how much a tour would cost per person, you have to add that 16%. VAT on fuel or increment in fuel, that makes your destination expensive for that one component called transport. Of course, those who transfer or those who deliver foodstuffs into the lodges and camps that we have in our country are using fuel, so they'll charge their lodges more for that delivery. That simply means that as we proceed, the Finance Act is touching on each and every other sector of the economy. Look at the domestic market. They're also impacted. I will see a situation where they're going to be traveling less and less because the whole overall tour package will be hiked. And that's something we need to address if you have to be competitive. Not to have even our domestic tourists going to Tanzania to enjoy Kilimanjaro, to enjoy Kilimanjaro, Ngorongoro, Serengeti, and so on. So we should stop that hemorrhage to our neighboring countries by looking at the finance bill afresh, if you ask me. Yes.
Moving on now, I mean, in the tourism sector, in terms of employment, some people do say actually it's seasonal. Like you had said, the migration is for a particular period. So employment, is that really the situation where it's seasonal? And how can we make sure that people get the employment opportunities all year round?
It is something that we should stop. The concept or the attitude among those who are not in the industry is that this is actually a seasonal business. And to a greater extent, it's a seasonal business. But you can be able to fill in those gaps that we call those seasons by domestic tourists. How do we do that? We make sure that we lower rates like we used to do in the 90s for domestic, for the domestic market. We also lower rates in the low season so that it's affordable to the common mwananchi in our country. In that way, all the players will be happy, including students who are on industrial attachment. They'll have something to train on, and even our local domestic market they'll enjoy lower rates, and that means that they'll be able to travel over holidays, school holidays, and so on. And that will ensure that we do not have to lay off staff during what we call the low season. Sometimes some beach hotels along the coast actually shut completely and for renovation, which is a good thing. But then we can make these off seasons shorter by drawing in also tourists from different parts of the world. I mean, those in Europe or in the US don't have to necessarily take leave at the same time, and when you have festivities in Japan and China and so on. So if you can be able to get from all parts of the world, we'll be surprised to have that, to find that you don't have a low season in our country, in all sectors. One more thing that we should do to avoid having low seasons and high seasons is also to open up other areas in our country. For example, we have the famous Western Circuit, Kakamega, Kisumu, Kericho, Kisii, Lake Baringo, Lake Bogoria, and all. That is not opened up. That means that we are applying pressure on specific destinations that are very well known. Samburu, Mount Kenya, the Mara, Lake Naivasha, Lake Nakuru. That takes only about 26% of the attractions that we have. What about if you opened up the rest of the country so that even those who are training, or those who aspire to train in the industry and they're located elsewhere in other parts of the country, Kakamega, Kisumu, they can also have quality amenities in those countries and get jobs in those counties, That could be a better thing for us.
Right.
So that you don't congest everything in our parks and national reserves and also in the beach hotels.
Okay, let's talk about now the seafarers. We saw some Mombasa residents lining up to be part of that.
Yes.
What opportunities are there?
Yes, that's a good thing. I'm happy that it's government to government almost, so that we can, get rid of those who want to exploit our jobless youth. I'm happy that the seafarers are coming to our country. I know that these are huge vessels. And I see a vessel like that will require somebody in the front office, someone to do the cashiering, somebody to do the housekeeping and laundry, somebody to do the waiting, and of course the chefs, which is what I train in. In fact, I have so many of those students who are who are employed in those cruise ships, as we talk about. Now, it's a good thing because it is going to take off our youth from looking for employment opportunities, even with their qualifications within the country. But I want to say something, that as we train in our industry, we should also endear to take international qualifications. We need to harmonize our training. We need to harmonize our training and get either one national body to examine all our colleges for the same course that you're offering, or we get an international examiner. For example, in my institution, the examiner is International Air Transport Association, IATA. This is a global association of all the airlines of the world. Name it, Kenya Airways, Qatar, Emirates, Etihad, all of them, KLM. They are members of IATA. So I subscribe to exams from IATA. IATA come up with a syllabus, they set the examinations, they examine, and they do the qualification of the awarding. That means that with a qualification like that, you're able to get a job anywhere in the world, in any airline, in any airport, and in any service industry associated with the airline industry. Now, coming back to your seafarers issue, if we have our students graduating in international qualifications, all these vessels, all these cruise ships will have no problem absorbing as many Kenyans as they can, this youth that we have, our youth, because they know that that qualification is international. Anybody who's holding that one can be able to work anywhere in the world because they are tried and they are tested. So at the training aspect, as we continue to send our youth to work in the tourism industry abroad, we should also mind the qualification that they have sat for, so that they do not have problems getting along with this very competitive industry, because we'll talk about global standards everywhere that we go.
Right. Yes. Very interesting point. But let's talk about now policy.
Yes.
Domestic, especially when it comes to domestic tourism. And, while addressing the government, what policies would you like to see in place?
Domestic tourism is a very big industry in our country, majorly because we have a growing middle income group in our country, and also the youth. I take a lot of time to go to high schools and sensitize them on careers in travel and tourism and hospitality. And there's so much awareness and exposure now in what our country has to offer. That means that you have so many Kenyans who are willing to venture into the tourism industry, not just to be trained and work there, but also to visit. But we do have some limitations. For example, I must repeat and say that the cost of most of the lodges and camps that we have are not very affordable for our Kenyans. At the same time, we will need to lower even park fees for our Kenyans. I know they are low, but they're not low enough for us to be able to have every other Kenyan get into those national parks and national reserves. And not just that, we should also have reduced rates also for transportation. Whether it's a Land Cruiser or it's a tour bus, we can be able to have, it's not too much to ask that for those low seasons, we should be able to have a lower rates being advanced by all the operators. As far as government is concerned, I think we have a training levy that at the moment only goes to Kenya Utalii College. The act is clear that the 2% training levy is only for Kenya Utalii College, yet we have more than 72 approved players who train in travel and tourism, including our universities. They do not enjoy that levy. So if this levy could be prioritized to all of us, we'll be able to train a bigger base of those who want to join the industry, and in that way we'll be able to export more labor for more foreign exchange, and in that we'll be able to have higher standards, because you have those who aspire to join the industry but then they cannot be able to join. One more thing is on HELB. The HELB that is allocated to those at TVET levels, mine is a TVET college, is hardly enough. It's about 40,000 shillings a year. Yet you'll find that for an institution to train a proper chef to good international standards acceptable anywhere in the world, you're talking about $1 million or so to train a particular chef, because the equipment is expensive and you want quality. You want that Italian, when they come to Kenya, to be able to have a taste of that spaghetti or that macaroni exactly the way they have it in Milano or in Rome. That costs money. So let's have TVET institutions training in travel and tourism and hospitality being given some special considerations, in the sense that we train for a serious international market, with a focus to have 70 or 75% of our students, when they graduate, going out to work and represent Africa to the rest of the world at international standards.
Right. Finally, before we take a break,
yes,
just tell us about your institution, the Air and Travel and Related Studies Center.
Okay. Air Travel and Related Studies Center was founded by myself 31 years ago, the 1st day of December 1992. As a private institution, out of a need, because when you are graduating, when I was graduating from Kenya Utalii College, we were told that you graduates must consider yourselves very lucky, because you are 200 graduating today out of 75,000 applicants to join Utalii College at the time. So I realized that there's a niche here, and hence then Air Travel and Related Studies Center was born. So we have moved from strength to strength until where we are now in our own premises in Karen. We train in areas of travel, areas of tourism, as well as tour guiding and air cargo. Another very serious business that we have to venture into is air cargo. Remember that Kenya Airways is attempting to convert some of the aircraft into cargo, because cargo is the next big frontier. Cargo is not showing any signs of slowing down. Remember that even during COVID, cargo was very useful as an industry. All the PPEs and all the vaccines and all that were coming in through cargo. So that cargo is an area that in my institution we really emphasize on, because it's the next frontier, as I've said. We also train cabin crews, those who serve food and serve beverage when the aircraft is in the air. You know that on any Emirates or Qatar or Etihad flight, you never miss Kenyans in that flight. Why? Because Kenyans are hardworking, no accent, good service-oriented, well-mannered and cultured, and they are very much sought after.
Right.
We are told when we go for recruitment, we are told that they work tirelessly. So cabin crew is another area that is of very, very important, of very much importance. And chefs, which we train, are never enough. As I talk to you now, over the weekend, I went to see my students on industrial attachment, who were at Mount Kenya Safari Club. I was surprised that the chef who is there is from Guadeloupe. It's a little tiny island in the Caribbean island, 40 France. That means that we are not training enough. If you have room for, expatriates into a country, that means that you can train more and they can be able to take over those particular jobs. Anyway, we just don't train for those courses alone. I made a deliberate attempt to ensure that my institution is full boarding. Full boarding, so that I can be able to teach them not just to get the papers, but also aspects like punctuality, your grooming, sense of ABCD, so that when I leave you to go to the job market, you'll be able to survive because you're all rounded. I must let you know that 84% of students that I train are retained when you take them for the industrial attachment. Mine is a different setup where I hang around with the student for as long as I can until the point of graduation.
Right.
And this is something I like doing myself personally.
Right. Thank you very much. Very interesting conversation there.
Yes.
That is Charles Gaku. He's the Managing Director for Air Travel and Related Studies Center. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome.
Right. We're taking a short commercial break here on News Center. We'll be back with more. Don't go too far.